Hey folks, Professor Finn here, and welcome to the Texas edition of Fridays with Finn. Hope all of you are doing well. It has been quite some time since we've had our little forum here. Starting to get settled here in Texas. We're in the new office, and I have got some doozies for you. So a couple of months ago, back in September, I got an email from a student saying, hey, when you get some time and you want to do a video, go ahead and, check out this article, dive in on it, and offer a response or offer an opinion. Said I would do it the next time the opportunity arose, and here we are with an opportunity arising. Feel free to drop something in chat if you want me to look at it or some topics you'd like to study, but until that time, I would go ahead and start up the screen share. Boom. So what we have here is a good case of Florida man getting busted by the Florida man Popo. Well, hello, my dear. How are you? Let's try to get this blown up just a little bit here. There we go. And of course, as I go to blow up the screen, I lose the chat. So this was back in September 8th, 1 minute read. Arrest made in Apopka cemetery vandalism. Someone just earned themselves a second-degree felony. I see you for embracing your new Texas lifestyle. Just kind of. We had a Western day about, what was it, last Thursday? I think it was last Thursday. And went ahead and decided to go full cowboy. When I visited the Texas State Fair, found this really cool little hat band. Didn't have a hat for it at that time, but I was like, you know what? I will remedy that in the future at some point, and remedied it promptly thereafter. So I'll tell you what. People who wear these felt hats for any extended period of time, their brain must bake like bake. So one of the rules of wearing hats, I guess, in Texas, and it makes sense, is during the hot summer months, you're definitely going to want to wear straw. And for formal occasions or other issues, you wear your felt, or when it gets colder out, because this thing locks in. Darla, hi Professor Finn, I am not a student, just a tutor from St. Pete College's funeral service tuning in. Darla, hello. And you'll be happy to know that's how I got my start. Professor Davis recommended me as a tutor, and I started tutoring. And after, I think I tutored for SPC maybe a semester or two after I got my full-time job in Miami. So you're working at a cool institution. My double alma mater. I graduated in 95 with an associate in arts, and then way later in 2006 with my funeral service degree, which is now actually hanging on my office at the Dallas Institute of Funeral Service. So I never thought I would put my degrees up on the wall, and every one of my degrees is now visible in my office. And when I look around, I'm just kind of like, man, I have crappy wallpaper. I need to swap it out for something else. So let's see who is going to be visiting Florida's finest accommodations. The Apopka Police Department said Deshaun Frankie Russell, 19. Well, that's a good way to start off your adolescence, is to earn a second-degree felony. He better plead that out. Has been arrested for vandalism at the Edgewood Cemetery. Apopka police credit the community for helping catch Russell. You can outrun the cops, but you can't outrun cameras and abuelas sitting on their porches. Hope your career path is successful as yours. I hope so as well. It's been very rewarding, and I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. Have you do you have your master's yet, or where are you at with like your degrees? Good for you, short for your accomplishments. I don't know, man. I don't get into that. Like, when I walk into people's offices and I see all like their degrees and garbage all over the walls, it's kind of like, dude, seriously, am I like supposed to sit down and genuflect before I get into my office chair? Like, I don't know. That's what always bugs me about putting my degrees up on the wall. It's just like, I don't know. But I'm putting them up because otherwise they're just going to sit in the envelope they've been sitting in for literally 13 plus years. So might as well get some screen time out of them, right? So according to police, multiple people provided video from the area. Ooh, got caught by the old door cams. An officer was able to identify Russell as the suspect. Orange County deputies picked up Russell on a warrant in the Orlando area where they recovered a stolen headstone and multiple firearms. Okay, I mean, I can imagine pulling over, getting him out of the car, cuffing him, throwing him in the back seat, then going through and searching and finding, a couple of 9mm semi-automatic handguns, 3/4 slant lawn marker, maybe some of the fake flowers. I mean, dude, yeah, that. I guess that's the criminal version of when you go to Walmart or like Publix or whatever and you buy like the most random objects just to see what the clerk's reaction is as you're checking out. I guess it's just too bad that when the cops turn on their when they turn on their police cams that we can't see their faces, because that would be like the best reveal videos ever. Police say the case is active and additional charges and arrests are possible. Looks like he might have had some friends. On Saturday, a Apopka police officer responded to Edgewood Cemetery at 8 p.m. for reports of damage to a burial headstone. The victim told responding officers damage was done to a family member's headstone. Well, even if you're gonna commit crime, I guess you should keep it in the family, at least. You're not like upsetting members of the public at large, just people who are likely going to spank you as soon as you get out of your incarceration. Went back the next day, discovered that a second headstone had been damaged and removed from the cemetery completely. So here's the fun part. That's 2 separate second-degree felonies in the state of Florida. Second or third degree. I'm having a senior moment. So the first thing is when you deface a tombstone, that in itself is a felony charge. And when you rip the tombstone out of the ground, that could be argued that you are defacing the grave, which is another felony offense. In the state of Florida, it's called disturbing the contents of a grave. So you can get cheeky to try to say that, hey, if you disturb the grass, you're disturbing the contents of the grave, right? This guy's is not arguing his case very well here. So we wish him well. We hope that he learns from his ridiculous lessons here, because this is not a way to start off at all. Got a couple other fun ones. I suppose we should talk about what was happening in Colorado. But real quick, folks, if you are thinking about going into funeral service education and you have a bachelor's degree, there are some schools that will hire you part-time with a bachelor's degree. They may even hire you full-time. And you must earn your bachelor's degree within 5 years. Here's a fun fact. The American Board of Funeral Service Education has scholarships that has money waiting for you. if you are trying to earn your master's or thinking about earning your master's and are teaching. Now, generally, these scholarships are locked to full-time employees of educational institutions. I do know that there may be some new scholarships on the forefront coming out here, but there is nothing wrong with, if you are looking for money for your master's degree and you are a funeral service educator, feel free to reach out to the American Board of Funeral Service Education, www.abfse.org, and get your application in, okay? We want to give away money. They want to give away money for you to earn your teaching credential. Right now, there is a critical shortage of funeral service educators in the United States. So if you were thinking about maybe changing careers, diving into something new, there is money available for you to do that. So this fun thing has been going on in Colorado, and I haven't really stayed in touch with it because, you know, when you have one funeral home that goes ahead and trashes everything by not, you know, cremating or burying bodies when they're supposed to, you've seen them all. In this case, this dude, I think, was going on for about 4 years. So we're going to say that he was persistent, and that kind of shows an intent to continue to defraud because, you know, it's not like you just got 200 corpses on a Saturday and decided not to bury them by Monday morning. So the owners of a green funeral home, that's cute. You see what they did there? A green funeral home. That's quaint. Were arrested in Wagoner, Oklahoma on Wednesday after law enforcement discovered 188 improperly stored bodies decomposing in a warehouse in Penrose, Colorado. Now, isn't that fun? It's bad. They're in jail now. Yeah. I mean, there's no way in hell you're not going to go to jail for doing this. I mean, there is no Guinness World Record for stupidest funeral home or funeral licensee, so, you know, why try for it? In October, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office discovered the decomposing bodies when officers investigated a foul odor coming from the funeral home's facility in Penrose, a town of 3,000, approximately 2 hours south of Denver. So you got a tiny little town. It's about the town I'm living in here in Texas, and they smell something bad. Like, can you imagine what would happen when you cracked open that door? Whew, man. Let's just say that the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, someone deserves to be like Deputy of the Month for opening the door and taking a step in. The website, which is no longer active, well, that's a shame. I was going to go and post my condolences, had advertised green and natural burials free of embalming chemicals. Yeah, okay. Colorado law allows for natural burials, but requires bodies to be refrigerated within 24 hours if they are not preserved. When questioned by law enforcement, Mr. Helford initially attributed the smell to his taxidermy hobby, because taxiderming human beings is clearly something that, you know, we do. Like, I guess kudos, thinking on the fly. It's my taxidermy hobby. Whatever, dude. I just can't fathom what level of apathy or what chain of events leads to something like this. It's called greed, dude. That's all it is. Like, that's all it is people being greedy and being stupid. And somehow thinking like they're not going to get caught. It's like, I don't want to draw parallels to like this level of stupidity in serial killers, but like the same exact thing happens with BTK, right? If you go and you look at the BTK story, the bind, torture, kill serial killer, he didn't get caught because the cops got better. He got caught because he got sloppy, he got stupid, and he got confident. Period. So you start being a miscreant by not doing like one body or two bodies or three bodies, and you realize no one's noticing. Then it goes to 10 and no one's noticing. Oh, I'm getting away with this. And all you're doing at this time is just raking in the cash. And what's the fun part? Like, what predisposes green burials to this? And it's really simple. Because if you have a green cemetery, and let's say you want to go for broke and you want to get the highest level of certification, that's going to be a conservation level cemetery, a conservation level cemetery through as certified through the Green Burial Council, which means you cannot alter the layout of the land whatsoever. You're not planting any bushes, you're not putting in markers. There is nothing to show for you burying that body there. If you go to a traditional cemetery, you're going to know if the grave has been opened or not. Not saying that you're not going to know if in a green cemetery, but I mean, are these people just dropping these bodies off in, you know, wondering when they're going to bury. I mean, gosh, man, this is just crazy. And the problem is, green burial doesn't need this level of bad press. And this is not unique to green burial bad press. So what this might do is this might actually turn people off to the green burial thing just because of the fact that this guy was, an apex level moron. One question by Lon. Yeah. Federal Bureau of Investigations on a mass casualty team. Yeah, well, that's what probably happens if you cross state lines, right? Well, bad news, buddy. The 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office is also asking potential victims who patronized the funeral between September 2019 and 2023 to come forward and help identify bodies. Dude, that's total trash. That's total trash. They're all going to have to probably give DNA samples because, they're not going to look too terribly wonderful after 4 years of just lying around. They always get way too comfortable. It's tale's old as time. Yep. Dumbass and the Beast, I guess. It's the latest Pixar film. To date, families who entrust the funeral home to cremate deceased loved ones have filed 2 civil actions for negligence and fraud. Well, now that's fun, right? Green Funeral Home doing cremation. Okay. So part of the fun here is this isn't just green burial. This is cremation as well. It's tri-state over in Georgia all over again. So, in mortuary school, folks, we tell you for a reason that every part of your business should be open to the public, and you should be delighted to show off your facilities. If you do not have someone lying in state in your embalming room waiting to be prepped or ready to be dressed, then you should be willing to show off your embalming facilities. If you have a incinerator attached to your funeral home and a family would like to see it, you should be able to show off your incinerator. It shouldn't be disgusting. It should be in good repair, and everything should be proper. State of Florida requires you to do some minimal care and maintenance. I remember a funeral home got cited because the inspector wrote them up because whoever was doing the cremation in Florida, they were chain smoking cigarettes. And when they finished one, they just flicked the butt onto the floor. And there was no area in the location where the incinerator was that wasn't covered with cigarette butts. It was like a carpet of cigarette butts. And so the inspector wrote them up for it, that they are failing to keep their premises in a sanitary and sightly manner. I forget what the actual write-up was. And if I recall, it stuck. Like, I'm sure they tried to say, hey, you can't do that, but that's built into Florida Administrative Code 69K, I believe it is, that you're going to maintain your facility to at some minimal standard that isn't like totally disgusting. They were among the weeks of worry, sleepless nights, and gut-wrenching anguish. Those fears were confirmed. They were among them almost 200 families whose beloved families had been discarded in an empty building to decompose. The ashes were fake, and now they had to start grieving all over again. The civil complaints claimed that the Halfords gave families crushed concrete instead of ashes. Colorado Governor Jared Polis, a Democrat, issued a... What does that matter? Like, who cares if he's a Democrat, Independent, Republican, Communist? Like, who cares? I'm relieved that criminal charges have been brought against the funeral home owner and a criminal investigation is proceeding. I know this will not bring peace to the families impacted by this heart-wrenching incident, but we hope the individuals responsible are fully held accountable in a court of law. Nothing about this clown saying that, hey, maybe we should require licensing of individuals and owners to make sure that if this happens, we can discipline their license, right? Not going to comment about that. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, in the state of Colorado, there is only facilities licenses. Okay, there's only facilities licenses. Once the facility is licensed, they can appoint whoever they want to work there. Go you. The Colorado legislature elevated the offense of abuse of a corpse to a Class 6 felony in 2020 following the discovery of a body brokering scheme at Sunset Mesa Funeral Home in Montrose. Yeah, that's the latest thing is body brokering stuff. If convicted of the highest charge, money laundering, the couple faces up to 12 years in prison and a fine of $750,000. Yeah, okay, so you have one charge of money laundering, which is probably a federal offense, and you have 200 counts of other fun stuff involving the tortious negligence or tortious interference with the actual bodies themselves. And then you have another 200 hits of breach of contract because remember, you sign a statement of goods and services and a funeral or a funeral contract on every one of these. So now you have breach of contract. I mean, dude, it's not worth it. Like, brainiacs, it's not worth it. Don't do it. Because even if you bank, you really just need to get on a plane and get the hell out of the U.S. and disappear in some country that doesn't have extradition. And even then, someone's going to send like Dog the Bounty Hunter after your ass to drag you back. So, it's just not worth it. I am curious to see what the 26-page affidavit. This ought to be good. Huh. So that's interesting. It looks like they've had multiple AKAs for the business. That's interesting. So in Florida, like if you're doing something like this, I don't think I've seen too many where there's like multiple AKAs. It could be like family burial LLC doing business as Smith and Wheeler Funeral Home. I don't really see something like this. So they're going after like every one of these businesses they started. I wonder what that is. There are the attorneys. Good luck with things. Properly stored deceased bodies. Misrepresented. So again, this is not the criminal proceeding. This is the civil case against them. So I'm not going to look at all of these things because it's. I mean, you're going to see the life story of what they're of who these people are because that's part of the fun here, is to really paint an idea of who these people were, to really show the disgrace that these people committed. So there's the amount of. So that's a fun statement right here, folks. Ashes take the form of a coarse sand-like matter. The amount of ashes families receive depends on the size and bone density of the deceased. They're not wrong. I mean, fully processed cremated remains are going to have a particulate type of composition, but you're never gonna not have like small bone fragments and stuff in there. There was it 21st century? Not 21st, but Funeral Directing and Funeral Service Management, Ralph Klicker's book, before his new edition of 21st Century Funeral Directing and Funeral Service Management. I think that book recommended that you show the family the cremated remains. And now an argument could be made for that, right? It could be made that, hey, you should probably show people cremated remains so people know what cremated remains look like. So if someone tries to pass off something like concrete, ground up concrete, that they can identify what it is they're looking at, because I can't say with like absolute certainty, but if you were to kind of do the Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola taste test, funeral director version, by putting like actual processed cremated remains, whether it be animal or human, next to something like pulverized kitty litter or pulverized concrete, we could probably tell the difference. Like if you have any skill in cremation whatsoever, you would probably be able to look at it and just know that one of these things is not like the other. So they established their LLC in 2016. So what about the rest of all this stuff? Like I'm still curious about why they have so many DBA names. And they didn't even have an active license. Oh my God. Like, this is what really kills me. Stuff like this is what really kills me. When you walk into an establishment Licenses have to be posted in a public place visible to clients either when they come in or in a place where a client can readily see it. It's kind of like on the employment end, if you're going to be posting like OSHA stuff, you can't put the posters in a closet somewhere. They have to be somewhere that employees congregate or employees are likely to see it. So if you have everyone punch in on computers, but you have an old time clock on the wall, you can't put the posters next to the time clock on the far end of a hall that no one uses and say, oh, it's right above the time clock, but they punch in on computers, so they're not likely to actually see the workman's comp information. So these folks, looks like didn't even have a valid license, which would have been like a major warning sign if you walked in and saw. And again, the fun part is, folks, that the defendants will probably go to prison for like money laundering or wire fraud or something like that, whatever. But they will not have a personal license disciplined. So if they went to a state like Florida and they applied for a funeral director's license, let's say they had all the qualifications, and they say, have you ever had a professional license disciplined? They could answer no to that. And the only license that was disciplined was the defunct corporation, and most places don't require you to put down every business you've ever run and was it ever disciplined. That's like not usually part of the application process. I feel like if you're going to do something dumb and illegal, make sure everything else that you do is done right. Too many screw-ups. Yeah, exactly. But thankfully, criminals are generally stupid, and when they do mess up, that's when they usually get busted. And you can't store 200 bodies. Like, you just can't do it, man. Someone is gonna smell it. Like, if a small animal dies in your attic or in your wall, you smell it all over the house, especially if you have like centralized air conditioning or something. Imagine like close to 200 bodies in a confined space. Like, dude. I suppose it tells you that where this building was nowhere literally near other human beings, because I cannot imagine people would be able to smell that and just like walk away from it. Several family complaints have spoken about return nature's gross misconduct. Customer complaints publicly available. Hired defense after passing of his mother, he noted that he immediately had suspicions, would never let him stop by the funeral home. Yeah, that's a good red flag right there. I mean, you can see it from the moon. When they dropped off his mother's ashes, they felt far too heavy to be his 92-pound mom. Okay. Especially, I guess, if you're using like minimum cremation merchandise, like a minimum alternative container, stuff like that. Further, knows the health care defensive following inquiries into the cremation process. He noted the envelope and box holding the cremains did not contain a metal tag normally used to track the deceased. I mean, come on, dude. Like, if you're going to try to defraud people, at least buy the metal discs. Further, certificate was also missing. The ashes don't look like human remains, are now forced to grapple with the nightmare that the ashes defense gave them that were not their loved ones. He scattered the place. Oh, boy. I was wondering if the facility was rural. One waft of wind and that stench could disturb an entire neighborhood. Yeah, to some level. Like, I wouldn't expect it's going to blow it up and down the street and you're going to smell it when you stop in to get your chicky nuggies at McDonald's, right? But if it's someplace like adjacent to a sidewalk and it's in like a high traffic area, you're probably going to notice a smell. It's probably going to be detected quicker. If it's in like a rural industrial complex or something, it's a warehouse away from everyone, much less likely, and then it's just bad luck that someone walked by, caught a whiff, and was like, dude, what the hell is that? If you look at Tri-State up in Georgia, my understanding is Tri-State was like half a mile off the road, basically in the woods. So if you were driving down the road, you weren't going to smell that there was like, 100 plus bodies kind of sitting in a field. You just weren't going to smell it that far away. Worst place you have to deal with, don't use them for your loved one. They only want your money. They have no empathy. They don't care about you and your loved one. It's all about the money and what they're getting out of it. Horrible place. 29, I don't often say, hey, you might want to check some Yelp reviews for your funeral home you want to use, but maybe you want to start checking your Yelp reviews because, dude, this is like, just out of curiosity, I was going to say, how many pages of like bad reviews did they paste into this thing? Defense standalone daughters remains. Defense are fully aware they're not properly maintained. Their conduct would not be basic example was harming the families of detained or disfigured. If you consider wrong. Okay, here we go. Allegations. The class is so numerous that joinder of all members is impracticable. Upon information belief, this class includes the family members of hundreds of decedents. And the reason for this is some states, so I am not a lawyer, I'm not licensed to practice law, but the reason that you make this sort of statement is that there are some places where you actually have to get as much or as close to all of the people together as possible in the class action suit. And the lawyers are simply saying, dude, there's so many people affected that pulling them together for something like this is going to be near impossible. Especially if you think about like the assets that are available. We're not looking at someone going after, Johnson & Johnson, a family company. We're looking at dumbass and Dippy, who are private parties who ran away with a bunch of people's monies and have infinite levels of, do not have an infinite level of assets, but to liquidate and compensate people. And that's a long complaint. Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. I mean, from my opinion, whatever that's worth, these folks are just making sure that these lawyers are doing their jobs well. That's all I'm going to say. So there's the intentional infliction of emotional distress. The one that's really hard. Okay, so if you look at the complaint, you see a lot of language that, hey, they knew or should have known what they were doing is wrong. They should have known it was a violation, blah, 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 blah. And what that is establishing the intent. You can't have intentional infliction of emotional distress unless you can show there's a clear intent to want to harm the people. Now, the defendants could probably try to say, well, we didn't intend to harm them, we just wanted to rip them off. Yeah, but you should have known that what you're doing was so irresponsibly horrible that it was likely going to inflict emotional distress on these people. And this is different than unintentional infliction of emotional distress, where you did not intend to cause the emotional distress. That's a much harder tort to try to prove. But I'm not going to say this is slam dunk, but it's pretty close to Larry Bird in his prime throwing, orange circles at a hoop. This reminds me of a guy from an embalmer's Facebook group. Yeah, I can't anymore with those groups. Like, I've just started, blocking all that crap and not accepting invites. He made posts complaining about people who bragged about being licensed. Turns out he was running an unlicensed facility while unlicensed. Yeah, asshats do that all the time. It's always amazing. And you'll have people that are unlicensed running a funeral home business that are like, people be hating because I'm successful, blah, 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 derp, derp, derp. No, they're complaining because, once again, if your business goes under, you screw a family, you don't get disciplined. That's the problem. And I will always have a problem with unlicensed owners. I think states like Florida, who allow unlicensed ownership, need to create a funeral director owner's license. So if you are an unlicensed person and you are a principal or an owner of a funeral home, that there is someone that is going to get slapped around and you will be personally disciplined and you will have to declare that a personal licensed was disciplined. Is it going to be a pain in the ass? Absolutely, because you have corporations that own things, and who's going to, have to get those licenses when you have a setup like that. But I think really at this point, something like that has to happen. So there's the intentional infliction of emotional distress. What else we got? Negligent infliction of emotional distress. they're gonna go over. They're just gonna go for everything. So here's the statement for unintentional right conduct was extreme and outrageous and goes beyond all possible bounds of decency. So if you have been through mortuary school or you're going into a funeral law course, you're going to see that the standard for unintentional infliction of emotional distress or negligent infliction of emotional distress is always that the action goes against all bounds tolerated by society. And this is a type of action that could be considered to go beyond all bounds tolerated by society. So the lawyers here are covering their bases. What they're saying is even if this doesn't prove intent, okay, even if for some reason the court finds that these folks were not doing this with intent to hurt these people and cause emotional distress, then they are so stupid, they are so negligent, they are so ridiculous that this is the fallback. That their own stupidity is causing the negligent or the infliction of the emotional distress. The fun part is with these sort of things, when you argue the negligence, you have to look at the physical impact factor. And I don't know the laws in Colorado by any stretch of the imagination. And I think the reason why they have these two statements here is maybe in Colorado, it's one of those states where if you have a breach of a funeral contract, then that waives the physical impact rule or it might be one of the states, Colorado might be one of those states where if you have a chemical imbalance, that can be used as a physical impact rule because any of you, when you are going through mortuary school, you're taking your business law class, you're taking your general law class, one of the cardinal rules of negligence, there has to be a physical impact, there has to be harm, and harm can be found in some cases at the cellular level. Courts have gotten really creative about finding that. From Christ, several bodies decomposed in his care too. Oh yeah, like they don't want to pay for the refrigerator, or they think they just leave a body on a table and turn the air conditioner on, right? I have an embalming question when you have a moment to answer relating to possible mutilation. Throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat. I'm just going through this to give you all your money's worth. Here's some extreme and outrageous conduct. Here's the straight negligence. So I wouldn't be surprised, folks. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the defense tries to talk about the lack of physical impact. Like it can't be negligence if there's no harm to the actual person, because that's such a cardinal rule of negligence. And nothing in the affidavit here seems to state that the individuals themselves have been physically harmed. They make allusions towards mental harm, of course, and maybe Colorado's one of those states that says, hey, that's okay. This is where law gets crazy. This is where, this is why you want to go to a lawyer in the jurisdiction that you are suing or creating your suit, so that they know what these intricacies are. Clearly, there is a difference between negligence and gross negligence, I guess, in Colorado. Maybe it's gross negligence if you get the intentional, careless, or reckless. So even if you can't prove intent, maybe you can prove that this was reckless or careless enough that it elevates it above something different, just like, standard negligence. That might be a thing. Negligence per se. So what they're arguing here with the negligence per se is because you violated something, in this case, like shall embalm, refrigerator, whatever, the moment you breach that, it's automatically negligence no matter what. So any crime per se is if you cross the line, if you go over the threshold, wham. It doesn't matter. There is no excuse. There is no argument. So you can see how heavily they are relying on the negligence here. Silent fraud. That's something I haven't seen before. Interference with the corpse. All I will say, plaintiff's attorneys, is good luck, Godspeed. Um, I think you did a hell. I mean, that was some good reading on in my opinion. So let's go back to full screen over here. An embalmer told me she always cuts the trachea and said all good embalmers do, but some might call it mutilation. What's your take on that? Okay, cuts the trachea. I can think of absolutely no reason on earth why you would do that. That's just me personal, but I will not state with any with any authority that I am a quote unquote good embalmer by her standard or any other standard. I have never cut a person's trachea. I mean, that's just so. If I'm going to talk about from my operational standpoint, that's one of the dumbest things I could think you could do because you're just making another hole that purge could come out of. I'm not seeing what the purpose of that would be. You're cutting it down here, like making an incision, opening it up, cutting it so everything leaks into the area where the incision is because you're going to put incision seal powder and suture that up. No, no, quote unquote good embalmers do that. I think I would be comfortable in saying that is not something I think that is taught at mortuary schools by any of the licensed faculty. I have never seen anything like that in the current textbooks. The one thing I've seen in the textbooks in Embalming History, Theory, and Practice by G. Mascarello and by the previous editions by Robert Mayer is tying off of the esophagus and trachea. So in autopsy cases, take a piece of ligature, wrap it around, and tie it to prevent anything from getting into the airway. But I wouldn't think that anything like the Champion book or the embalming book by Straub and something or other, it's another older embalming book, I wouldn't think they would have any type of direction that would say, hey, you go ahead and cut the trachea. I mean, if it works, great. You know, wonderful. I just think it's completely unnecessary for you to have to cut the trachea to prevent it from purging when the same exact thing can be accomplished by simply inserting cotton and then proper and thorough aspiration. Like, that's why you're supposed to aspirate, inject, aspirate again if you think things are going south. Like, it just eliminates the entire need for doing something like that. And just about every modern textbook has stated that the packing of orifices and packing of the throat is something you should do in every single case. So, you know, I wouldn't do it. If it was my boss and my boss said do it, I would do it because my boss is the one that cuts my check and I'm going to do what the boss wants. But I see no reason that that is something that would... One, I do not believe that quote-unquote all good embalmers, I think that's just a blatantly false statement and trying to throw shade at other people that simply don't do that. You know, there's lots of things that I don't do that Matt Smith does. Matt Smith is a good embalmer. Like, objectively, Matt Smith is a good embalmer. He's got some radical techniques that tends to land him on, you know, a little bit of a critical side when people are talking about these things. But it doesn't detract from the fact that he's a good embalmer. And Matt Smith actually came to Miami-Dade years ago, back when he was associated with the Frigid Chemical Company, and I don't think he ever mentioned cutting the trachea. I've met Sharon G. Mascarello. Now, I've never sat there and talked about, hey, do you cut a trachea or not? But I would probably say that Sharon has not done that. That's not a standard technique in her repertory. And you know, if she ever listens to the live stream or hears this and wants to shoot me a chat or an email and say, no, dumbass, that's actually something you should do, then by all means, I will absolutely eat crow on that. My former Dodge rep from Miami, now retired, Jay Rhodes. I've known him for well over a decade and a half. I would think, in my estimation, Jay is one of the best embalmers I've ever met. Like, Jay is a master of the art. And Jay has never mentioned anything like that. And at estimation, I would say Jay has done a minimum of 8,000 or 9,000 bodies. So I'm just like, when people say stuff like this, only good embalmers, no. No, I've known plenty of good embalmers. We're not talking academics, okay? We're not talking about people like me who went into a school lab and just, primarily have embalmed there, especially because I mean that's my record. That's all I've done for the last almost 8 or 9 years is embalm in the academic setting. I am talking about people who embalm for a living and make their livings off of this. I have never heard anyone make a statement like that. One thing I can tell you folks, like beyond any reasonable doubt, is licensees in our industry have a tendency to make statements of fact that are not factual. I'm not saying they're lying. What I'm saying is they're making statements of fact that have no basis in fact. They think it might be that way, so they say it is that way. And then they rely on the fact that I'm a licensee and I know, to kind of push them through that. And in actuality, people should not be doing stuff like that. Like, I know it is a felony offense in the state of Florida to disturb the contents of or to deface a tombstone. I know that is fact, and I will make that statement as fact. Earlier on I said, second degree felony, third degree felony. I can't remember actually which one it is, but it is without a doubt a felony offense, and the more I think about it, I want to say I think it's a third degree felony. Tying it, let's see. Me either. I couldn't wait to ask you. Dude, so folks, if you ever have questions or stuff like that, ask bigbadfin@gmail.com. Okay, ask bigbadfin@gmail.com. That Gmail is solely dedicated to anyone who wants to ask a question, wants me to do a video or something like that. And even if I don't do a video on it, I respond to those emails. So I answer questions no matter what. And I mean, if you can find me at any of my other business contacts, either through my consulting company or my at the Dallas Institute of Funeral Service, like you can also email me there or call with a question. I can't tell you how many calls over the years when I was a professor at Miami-Dade that I would get from students and graduates. And there's no reason just because I've hopped states and I'm in a different role that if you have my contact information or you have me on Facebook that you can't ask questions. Like, I'm always going to be dedicated to people who want to err on the side of caution, want to get some solid advice. That's just what I do. Dollar Rights, tying it off is a better usage. Yeah, absolutely. But that implies that you have access to it, right? And in an unposted case, you're not going to have access to that. So again, what I think the theory is, and I am not going to budge from the idea that I think it's a bad idea. I'm just not going to do it. But I can see the thought pattern behind it. If I have an open incision, I can make a cut, and that would prevent anything from coming out here because it's going to leak in there. Again, I'm not going to advocate it's a good idea. And it's absolutely a falsehood that all good embalmers do that. Period. That's a falsehood. I would not want to do something like that because now I'm relying on my suture and I am relying on incision seal and I'm relying on whatever adhesives I'm using on the top, and then I'm going to be relying on whatever plastic garments I am using. Because if you're going to do something like that, you absolutely, you're going to have to use incision seal powder. When you're done, you better be reaching for Plastiseal. You should not be reaching for a spray adhesive or something like that. You better damn well not be using super glue. Super glue is not going to hold if any sort of moisture gets towards those things. You better make sure that suture is tight, man, because if there is any gap whatsoever between the hole and the suture, you're inviting disaster, which is why you have to use something like Plastiseal or plastic cement so it absolutely gets in there and locks it down. I just think you're taking a huge risk. Now, if the embalmer's doing a tracheotomy, that's a bit concerning. I mean, if they're poking through the top of the skin and going right in there, that's just. I will die on the hill that is professional negligence. There is no reason for you to do that whatsoever, and I can't imagine that's what that person is advocating. I can't imagine that at all. One thing Jay showed me, like if you don't know where something is that's leaking or whatever, just get in there and start making cuts so that if it does leak, it just pours into the gap of the incision. Jay did show me that one time when dealing with veins, but never with dealing with purge. Never when dealing with purge. And I assume Jay's enjoying retirement. I mean, I got him on Facebook, but it's not like I call him up and ask him how he's doing or anything like that. And I wish him well. Like, I remember when I first started apprenticing at Reese Funeral Home in Seminole, Florida. I think I met Jay, like within a week and a half of me on the job, and Jay complimented my work, which I thought at the time was like one of the, like I won like the Silver Star or something like that. I thought that was really cool that a professional embalmer looked at what I did as an apprentice and thought it was pretty good stuff. I've just been lucky like that. Angela, how are you? Do you have any tips for those entering their internship? Yes. Don't get railroaded. That's my best advice, kiddo. So going into your internship, okay? First thing, interns almost always get paid less than licensees. And the higher you are paid as an intern, the less likely you're going to get a raise going to funeral director, right? Because if the funeral directors are making 20, 23 an hour and you're as an intern are making 19, don't expect to get like a $10 raise when it's done. 2, different firms handle the internships differently, okay? Different state inspectors will tell you different things about an internship. What you can do, what you can't do. I've had people at the state say that you can't be meeting with families. I have other inspectors saying, well, how the hell are you supposed to get the experience if that's not what that's for? There's a lot of stupidity on that. So going into your internship, some of the same rules are going to apply when you apply for any job apply. 1, if you don't get it going in, don't expect to get it later. If you need to make 19 an hour, make sure you get 19 an hour or say no, okay? Second thing, go in dressed serious, okay? Go in dressed serious. If you're not dressed in business formal, you're doing it wrong. I'm old school. If you go in dressed business formal, no one will ever complain about it, no one can bitch about it. That's an important thing. And a lot of people screw things up when they go in for interviews, thinking, well, the funeral home needs me. Not really, okay? Not really. If they think you're going to be a detriment to them and you're not going to present yourself properly to the families, you're shooting yourself in the foot before you even start. So make sure you go in dressed well and to impress. Third thing, while you are an intern, you are a licensee, okay? If they discipline your internship in any way, shape, or form, you have to report that going forward, and you'll report it for the rest of your life every time you apply for a new license or some change because you've had it disciplined. So be aware, okay? Be aware of what violations of law are when it comes to our industry as an intern or a resident or as an apprentice. Different states call them different things. In Florida, we call it an internship because the state board is going to expect you, okay, to uphold the law. And if they have you doing something illegal and you are complicit with it, the state is not quite forgiving, right? They're going to put you on probation. They may revoke your internship. They revoke your internship, that's kind of a problem. These days, people are happy to have interns. Okay, these days people are happy to have interns. And there are lots of intern positions available at varying prices, at varying wage points. So don't be afraid to shop and find the right fit for you. And don't be afraid once you get your license to jump ship and look for something different. Okay? It is really easy to get stuck in a work environment you like, but you're not making maybe what you need to make. So make sure you always explore fully where it is you're going to go with something. If I had not said, hey, I got to take my career to the next level, I'd probably still be in Miami. And I'd probably retire fat, dumb, and happy. But I would never have come to this next level doing what I'm doing now. Like running a school is something completely different than being a professor. It's a completely different skill set, and it's been a blast. transitioning from an academic role to an administrative role. I've had a great time with it. But absolutely, you have worth as an intern. Okay, you have worth as an intern, and make sure you understand that, and make sure you take pride in that. If you got like really specific questions as to what you'd like me to address, drop it in the chat. Happy to give you more advice on it. But I worked myself to death as an intern. Like, I remember, I don't think I ever, in fact, I will tell you that I did not say no at any point of my internship to my owner. I think I worked for more than 2 weeks straight at one point because he just kept pulling my days off away from me because they needed the help. I wanted the experience, but I'm a Gen Xer. Okay? I will die at my desk. That is the way we were raised. Millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, that's not the way you folks are. So when you work with people like Gen Xers, understand you're going to have that little bit of a gap, and it would be really beneficial if you fall into that category, maybe millennial, Gen Y, Gen Z, and you are working for like boomers or Gen Xers. Understand that there is a difference in how we communicate and what our expectations are. And I still see a lot of this. I see this in Texas for sure, where, oh, these kids, they don't. No, the kids are different. The kids aren't going to die on the altar of funeral service. We will do that because that's who we are. But they're not going to do that. So then how do you change that mentality? How do you get them invested in what you want and what your expectation is? David showed me how to access the trach through the karate decision. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just get in there and go in. I mean, it's not hard to do that. I'm saying, what I would say is simply that there is no need to do that if you're already doing what is tried and true. Like, there's no need to make extra holes. And again, if you're, think of it from a cost standpoint, right? If you're packing the throat and you're doing it right, you're using cotton. You're using roll cotton, not the Webril towels, bulk cotton. That's like $9 a roll. That's super cheap. If you make the cut, you're having to use Plasticil or some heavy-duty adhesive. Those cans aren't cheap, and if you don't use them, they harden up. So you're losing cost there. You're having to use a plastic garment of some sort, coverall, etc., which means that's something the family might feel or hear as they touch their loved one because you have that plastic on. I don't see where there is a benefit whatsoever, both for the cost of materials you're going to have to use, as well as, you know, the risk of what might happen. Would it balloon in the throat if it did leak? Well, so now that's a good question. How much incision sealer are you going to have to pour in there so if it does purge, that it is controlling that? And likely that's going to be a lot, which means that is going to swell. Incision sealer, when it gains water, swells. So it might start to balloon and bubble, which, again, man, I'm just not going to say ever that is a good idea compared to packing the throat and proper aspiration. If you're doing proper aspiration, it will never make it into the throat. It really won't. Because what have you done? You've poked so many holes, it's all leaking into the abdomen. And if you see swelling and something happen, you're going to aspirate the liquid out. You're going to aspirate the biological matter out. And then what are you going to do? You're going to put in more cavity fluid. And the beautiful part about cavity aspiration and injection, no matter what, you will eventually win. At some point in time, the formaldehyde, through contact, is going to pull moisture out of that tissue until it's completely desiccated. Once that's gone, it's not going to decompose until more water gets in there, which, good luck if you are continually aspirating and putting in product. And I think the most severe cases, maybe you might have to aspirate and inject 3, maybe 4 times. Like, this is not hard. This is not hard. And by doing it that way, you're solving more problems, right? Because if something is pushing it up and it's going to leak in here, here's a hint, it's pushing it the other way as well. So by treating the source of the problem, you're not relying on the Band-Aid. Jay was always so sweet and eager to assist students, very personable guy. Yeah, absolutely. I recommended So the Miami-Dade College has a Hall of Fame, and I recommended him for like the last 3 or 4 years. That he would come to Miami and he would just teach a lab for free. He would come in, he would demonstrate product, he would demonstrate best practices. Um, it kills me. It kills me the way that guy bent over backwards for his alma mater, because he was a graduate of Miami-Dade way back in the day, and I wanted to recognize him. I want to do something cool for the guy. They just never got around to doing it. Maybe in the future, if someone hears this, they'll actually take a step and recognize him for the years that he gave for free, just coming in there and teaching in the lab and sharing his knowledge. Darcy, I tried helping a student one time who was keen on not dressing formally at interviews. They were goth, because that's discrimination. No, it's not discrimination. It's called standards. Like, I am allowed to discriminate you by basis of your dress, right? I cannot discriminate against you if it is a protected dress. So it has to be tied to religion. It has to be tied to one of the classes. Goth is not a religion, period. You want to dress at Hot Topic and show up for a job interview, you'll have a wonderful career working at Costco or Walmart. But I don't think too many funeral homes are going to hire you because we don't do theme night there. Sorry. You want to go to work at Walmart, become a general manager, make, $200,000 a year, save up some cash, and open up a goth funeral home, you knock yourself right out, folks. I'll be the first one to say go for it. But until that point, you got to do what the person that runs that funeral home wants you to do. And they're not going to let you dress like that. I like how everyone becomes a legal scholar. That's discrimination. Yeah, but by definition, it is absolutely discrimination, but it is not prohibited discrimination, right? It is not prohibited discrimination. I can look at you, I can form opinion, you look like a slob, I don't want you working for me. Well, you're just saying that because I'm Catholic. No, I'm saying that because you dress and look like a slob, and I don't want you associated with my business. That simple. There's when we talk about funeral law, I do this lecture on civil rights, okay? And it has to do with EEOC versus Abercrombie and Fitch. So way back in the day, Abercrombie and Fitch got sued and went all the way to the Supreme Court because they discriminated against a young Muslim woman. And it had to do with the fact that she, through religious practice, has to cover her hair. She wasn't wearing a hijab at the time of her interview. She was wearing simply a headscarf. And I talk at length about the intricacies of that and how, Abercrombie wouldn't be able to determine whatever, blah, blah, blah. Not going to get into it. Maybe in the future I'll do that lecture or something like that. But that's a protected class. And if someone like her, a Muslim woman, was wearing like a goth headdress, I wouldn't have to permit the goth headdress. Like if you walked in and you had a hijab and it had embroidered skulls on it, I can send you home, okay? Because it's a reasonable accommodation. So I can allow you to wear your ethnic dress. I can allow you to wear your religious dress. But I can absolutely probably get away with saying it has to be proper in fitting the position of which you fill. So something embroidered like that is inappropriate for my workforce setting. I need you to use a solid color. And I can still get sued. Like I'm still going to have to go to court. But that is much more likely to withstand judicial scrutiny than me saying, nope, right? Reasonable accommodation. We've had the talk. Here's what I can offer. Here's what you have to abide by. And if you can't abide by that, then I can't use you. This is why in funeral law, if you're using the mortuary law book by Gilligan, he talks about the fact that you will have to defend it. Like if they want to pursue it, you're going to have to defend it. So you better have the conversation. You better have the stuff in writing. You better have the expectations set so that you can present that as evidence on your behalf. I love alternative fashion, but it isn't ideal for interviews. No, it's not by any stretch of the imagination. And mind you, every now and then I walk into Hot Topic and I find a cool pin or a cool patch or whatever. I'm old enough to remember I could walk into Hot Topic and buy music. In fact, I think, and I promise you, that I was working at, I think, the Franklin Mint at Tyrone Square Mall when Hot Topic first moved in. And if not, they moved in shortly after I left the Franklin Mint. So I was there when that Hot Topic store first opened in Tyrone Square Mall. And that's where I discovered Power Man 5000, the band, because they had a section of, thrash metal and grindcore and stuff like that in the back. And nowadays it's basically like, I don't know, goth, think geek, because now I can walk in and find like anime crap and stuff like that. And I'm just like, meh. I remember back in the day when it was actual like metal. Angela, thank you for the advice, and I'm so happy that your adjustments have been a positive experience for you. Yeah, so am I, because like moving to Texas and not liking it would have sucked, like horribly so. My prior comment about the trach was made before your explanation of preventing purge. I think the comments are delayed. Got it. Yeah, like I don't know how chat works, but yeah, I'm sure there is some level of delay. Because I've noticed that I'll say something, it'll take like 30 or 40 seconds before probably even publishes, and then someone types it and it takes like 20 or 30 seconds before it comes back. I wish I could perfect the heart tap like Jay. He was always made it look so easy. So, Darla, the way you perfect that, all honesty, is you practice it on every single body when you go to aspirate. Okay? And the way you practice it is super simple. You're injecting, okay? You're injecting. Turn your machine down. Tie your vein off wherever you're taking your drainage. Depending on how hard you're pushing, count to about 10. Kill the machine. Okay, kill the machine. When you go to take your arterial tube out, you got to take it out and clamp that as quickly as possible. You want that pressure to stay. Okay, because what you've done is you've charged the system. You'll see a lot of, now here's where I'm going to say it, you'll see a lot of good embalmers that kind of rev that engine and put a little bit of pressure in because they want to increase the rate of diffusion by keeping that intravascular pressure strong, so you continue to have that kind of lawn sprinkler thing going on with your capillaries. The side result of that is your heart is now filled, right? You have pressure built in there, so your heart has fluid in it. So then you can go in with the trocar, position where it's supposed to be, and then pop it right into place. And if you hit it, you'll see that little flush of blood, because blood is going to be trapped in the heart, and you'll know it's draining. The other thing Jay had is he had a heart tap trocar. You can buy those through Slaughter. And I still haven't gotten one. I always said I was going to buy one. I was probably going to buy it this year, but then I came to Texas. And it is just the right length, so if you pop it into place, it shouldn't go through the heart. And Jay has told me that even if you screw up the heart tap, just pull it back, and when you find it, it's still going to work just fine. Like, you shouldn't be going so far that you're ripping through the aorta. And if you do, well, now you're going to a 6-point, and that's on you, and you just got to, quote-unquote, get good. But remember, Jay was forced to learn the heart tap very early on, very quickly, and he did it on all of the cases. I mean, I think by his admission, he got like 200 or 300 bodies of practice, because that's all he did was heart taps all the time. And probably, 1 out of every 50, he would probably still screw up because it's just bad luck every so often. But Jay's a pro. I'm sure Jay is still doing a little bit of trade work on the side just to stay active. But yeah, he's good. He's really, 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 really good. Always a joy when he used to come down to my lab and hang out. Always. So while I wait for more stuff to kind of pop in, I got just under an hour left. People disappear, we'll call it a little bit early. I found one more fun thing to kind of pull up on the live stream. Let's go look at this little fun guy. Bam. All right. So this popped up October 17th, 2023. I thought this would be a cool one to kind of go over. Funeral home for sale in Pennsylvania, ready for a change. Look at this bad boy. This is old school, man. Got the garage there on the left. I love the porch. I don't know how I feel about the awnings, like the striped awnings. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd probably want to like screen those in. So this was up for sale back then. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, $300,000. I just paid well over $300,000 for a. How many damn bedrooms do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4-bedroom, 3-bath here in rural Texas. No business attached and rated residential only. So here we are looking at a funeral home. I'll tell you what, doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad at all. This could be an amazing aesthetic salon, a clinic, doctor's office, an art studio, or even like a funeral director's home away from home. Right? Look at their prep room. I'm thinking, folks, I am thinking this is a basement prep room. I can't state that for certain. Maybe it's not a basement prep. Maybe it's a first floor, or it might be a second floor prep room. Dude, if it's a second floor prep room, that has got to suck if the elevator goes down. So what are they? Okay, so they got a Duotronic. Okay, they got the Duotronic right there. Dude, did they just drop the hose right down into the floor? Looks like they do that. Yeah, it goes down into the floor. Here's the aspirator, right? So they have a powered aspirator. That looks like, was that one of the old Champion ones? Might be an old Champion aspirator. There's your eye wash station. I don't see the drench shower. I don't know why they got the... You know what? They probably have the trash bin up there because they have to make space to walk around. Cooling table. Cabinet's got to go, man. Cabinet's got to go. I don't like that color. I don't like that color at all. This looks like a renovated attic. 5-car garage, bro, for $300,000. This thing must be in the hood or something at that price range. There's got to be something wrong with this, or literally, it's the stigma that it's a funeral home. The kitchen is. I hate to say it, the kitchen is trash. Like, y'all need to rip everything out of that and just make it look good. Like, yeah, kitchen could use some love here. Do I have a preference when it comes to electric aspirators or hydro aspirators? As long as it sucks, I don't care. I've used both. So the lab in Miami, and it has 3 stations, and each one of the stations it has a hydro aspirator. And if you have the proper water pressure, works just great. I purchased, I should say the school purchased a electric Dodge aspirator, and I would tell you that I would look at any other option than purchasing an electric aspirator if that is the current state of modern aspirators. Like, I do not see where that thing is comparable to a hydro aspirator. It just doesn't have the suction I think it should have. And they ain't cheap, man. They're easily like $500 to $800 if I recall. They're not cheap at all, and they weigh a ton. So it's not a bad product. It works as advertised. But I am surprised it does not have more suction. And I think that's where my fault lies. Like, if you look at some of the older machines, there's a reason why they were called rib crackers. Because they could do enough suction that if it started creating a vacuum, it would just crush the the ribs of the deceased. It would snap them. Yeah, right? You come up the stairs and it's like, oh yeah, here's the kitchen. And dude, what's crazy? Like, what's crazy about this? The kitchen is disgusting, but the prep room is like, okay. Like, it's almost like I want to cook in the prep room. I'd be really interested to see what the heck it is they got on their walls over here. I mean, it's shiny. It doesn't look like paint. I'd say it was tile or something, maybe. Have you ever had an aspirator blow? Oh, God, yeah. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah. I've had it happen to students. It's like they don't understand what happens when, like, it's aspirating and there's a pressure differential and the tip of the trocar is still in there. And then they go ahead and do something they shouldn't, and it just pulls the... Oh, yeah, it's good. It's good times. I also like it when the hose pops off the end and then decides to spray chook everywhere. This is why, kids, you wear PPEs, okay? Crown of a Monarch. Dr. Finn, good to see you. I'm studying for Florida State exam. Any study tips? Yes, beat the living hell out of 497 and 69K. Up to 70% of the exam comes from those two things by themselves. There is a... give me a second here. So I have worked in the past with the folks over at Death Education Assessment Drills to do like a weekend Florida law review. Where the heck is it? I think this is it. Give me just a second here. I'll show what I'm talking about. While we're waiting for PowerPoint to verify, because, of course, I purchased a lifetime license and they have to verify I purchased a lifetime license every time I open the damn thing. Okay, dude, okay. I just got to say, this is ghetto. This is totally ghetto. How do you have that big-ass wall in the back and like a 23-inch or like a 30-inch TV on there? Like, come on, dude. Really? A 75-inch TV can go, like, you can go down to Sam's Club and get a 75-inch TV for like $5 or $6.99. What is wrong with you? Put a big TV over there, Christ. Oh, my God. I think that's the only problem I see with that room, is the fact that, like, you have that huge white wall and there's nothing on it except like a crappy little TV. Looks like they closed in a wall, like the exterior of the home. Like, where is that? That's got to be going either to or from or somewhere near the garage. What is this crap? Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Let's finish looking at pictures. Okay, picture time is over. Yay, goodbye, pictures. Toodles. All right, so Crown of a Monarch. There used to be a PDF. If you order the number one, if you have not, you need to order the study guide. The division has a study guide that you can purchase. I think it's like $15. You can buy it off their website, myfloridacfo.com. The cover sheet of that is what you see on this slide. So 40 to 50% of the test comes from practice laws, 497, 69K. But then 20%, up to 20%, is pre-need, which also comes from 497 and 69K. So up to 70% of the exam just comes from 497 and 69K. And pre-need is a big chunk of that, right? So then you have a couple of questions from the medical examiner section, you know, maybe 3 questions about vital statistics, 2 or 3 questions from disposition 406, 2 questions, 3 questions maybe from offenses. Maybe you get 1 or 2 questions about the federal law. I really wish they would cut the federal law off of it. I don't think they're going to do that anytime soon. But it is what it is, man. It looks like the old school SpongeBob technique from the 90s. Yeah, right? Nice. Look at you dropping SpongeBob from the 90s. I haven't had an aspirator blow back, but I know it's bound to happen. I can't imagine cleaning all of that up. Well, there's a couple of ways you can prevent that from ever happening, okay? The first way you prevent that from ever happening, honest to God, is when you pull your trocar out, Just give it a second to drain. Just let it suck. Okay? If you pull it out and you hear nothing change, that is your clue that something is clogged. Drop it down the drain hole. Put your hand over the hose, especially if you're not using a quick release. It's just kind of pushed in there. I don't have my embalming instruments in here yet. They're still out in the garage. Hold the hose on there. Reverse your water flow. Let it push the crap out. Now, if you are going on your board exams, okay? If you are looking at the proper way to resolve a clogged trocar for exam purposes, it is specifically prohibited to reverse the flow of water and shoot the stuff out the front of the trocar. I don't think I've seen a book that says that that's okay, but that is something that 99% of all embalmers do, because no one's going to take the damn trocar, disassemble the SOB, and then run pipe cleaners through it. We're going to blow out whatever's in there, especially if it's turd. Then we're going to scrub it through with the pipe cleaner. So that is probably one of the only areas where I will say that I disagree with the recommended course of how to solve that, because you just push it. It's like, oh, if you do that, you can blow it all over the walls if you're being stupid. Okay? If you put your hand over the edge of the hose and hold it onto the handle and then reverse the water slowly, the chances of you blowing it off the end of the trocar and spraying the walls with chook, blood, and crap are greatly reduced. If not not zero, absolute zero, to statistic zero. I have done it for 15 years. I have never blown stuff all over my walls. Never. But I'm also paranoid, and I never not hold that hose down into the drain and make sure that it doesn't pop off the end of the trocar. That's just me. Side note, it blows my mind how accessible, cheap, and disposable TVs have become. Yeah, right? I paid $1,500 for like a 15-inch way back in the day, a 50-inch plasma. It's nuts. If I pay $1,500 now, I can get like an 80-inch TV, 8K. It's just crazy. Practicing the investment, now you can practically buy a new one every year. Yeah, and my problem is I've got I think I've got a 65-inch Sony right now that I've had like since 2017, and I am hoping it lasts like the next 20 or 30 years because it's got built-in 3D, and I got the little Sony 3D goggles so I can watch 3D movies on it. No other TVs you can buy consumer level right now have 3D built in. It like goes into these phases. And I really like the idea of being able to sit there and watch a 3D movie wearing the goggles on my TV without having to put on like a MetaQuest headset or something like that. Which, FYI folks, if you want to watch 3D movies in a badass style, get yourself like a MetaQuest 2 and big screen VR. And it is the coolest thing ever to sit there, drop that stuff on there, get yourself a nice set of like surround sound cans or something, and you get a theater experience. I'm excited for the slideshow. You're not getting a whole slideshow. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. Like, the question was, what's the best way to study for the laws exam? This is the best way to study for the laws exam. I think where people make the mistake is they spend just as much time on the federal law, which is like one question, as on everything else. You can't do that. Okay, you just can't. I don't want to say go in there with the idea of just getting the federal law wrong, but don't spend the amount of time that you are spending on the federal laws like you should be spending on 497 and 69K. That's the big takeaway. The other thing I think people go south with on it is you folks have a tendency to just want to know what they're actually going to quiz on. They can quiz from anything. The state of Florida has never actually dictated who it is that writes the questions, who polices them, anything like that. Like, they've released no data on that. For years now, Howard Beckham at Florida State College, I think Kevin at St. Pete, Professor Kevin Davis there, I've been critical of it. And I think at some point the division is going to have to address that, because pass rates on that exam have remained basically across the board at 50%. an important thing about the state laws exam of Florida. If you fail it, you are authorized by law to be able to go in and review it. You'll have to schedule an appointment, but you can go in and you can review your test. Now, you're not going to say, oh, I got this question right. Okay, you're not going to get that, but you can go in and see what the answers are. And then go back to your car, make your notes. Here's what they quizzed me on. So if they're asking you questions about pre-need license renewals in regards to like how much money do you need, stuff like that, you know to spend some time on that. You do have the study guide, good. And yes, it's stupid. Yes, it's a stupid amount of paper. But, hey man, it's all you can do. Like, it's all you can do. I am telling you that I was more scared of that test than I ever was of my board exam. Like, when I really sat down to study the laws, because you really don't do that in mortuary school, right? You break the surface, but you really don't do a deep dive into the Florida law. Oh my God, dude. Then it hit me that this was going to be just like a horrible experience. And the problem is Florida has the worst laws of all 50 states. Like, period. For a while I taught at Arkansas State University of Mountain Home. And in their law class, they have to learn the laws of Arkansas and the laws of Missouri, right? Because where they're positioned in Arkansas, a lot of their people go to Missouri to work as well as go to cemeteries and stuff like that. And you have to have a license in order to cross state lines. So I want to say that the Missouri laws are like, in its entirety, is like 56 pages. And we're not talking like 56 pages top to bottom. 56 pages, some of those pages have like 2 sentences at the top, then it goes to the next section. 50-something pages. That's it. Florida law has like 50 pages in 497 sections 1 and 2. It's something absurd. Darla, question, why does the textbook recommend humectants for edematous cases? Is that not potentially counterproductive? Feel free to shoot me that reference. Like, literally tell me where the hell it says that. Which book, which edition, what page. I don't normally call people out like that, but you literally have to tell me where it says that because you're reading it wrong. You have to be. Because if you can tell me that, I'll pull it up on my Kindle right now. So I have the 6th edition of the book on Amazon Kindle. And I will look it up and I will translate what it is saying for you. And if it's the 5th edition of the book, I get that on PDF. So I can still find it. All right, let's drag this over here because I don't want someone saying, oh my God, it's showing pictures of a dead body. Ban them. Ugh. So let's do a word search. This is going to suck. Like, I already know it's going to suck if I just do a word search for the word humectant. Hide the notebook. I don't want the notebook. I want this. Where is severe emaciation? That makes sense. So I know there's some asshats out there who say that if you add too much humectant, it serves as it causes a dehydrating effect. And people go, oh, I can add that to an edematous case and it's going to pull the edema out. No. Okay? FYI. No. What the hell? You do not make logical inferences like that because you have too much damn water in there to begin with and you don't want to do that. So I know that's a thing because people pull that crap on me when I was teaching embalming. But professor, it says in the book if you add too much humectant, it has a dehydrating effect. Yeah. And you're still dumber than rocks if you're going to put that into an edematous body with the intent to dehydrate it, especially when you have products specifically made to do that, like Epsom salts or edema co or edema eliminator or whatever that product is in the product line that you use, like Champion or whoever. Like, you don't just add humectant to try to dehydrate the body. Page 409 of the 5th edition. Let's go check that out. Let's see. Thank you for finding it, you rock. Okay, where the hell is that folder? Oh my god. There it is. Let's see. Okay. Embalming. 5th edition. What chapter is that on 409? Because the digital version that I created the PDF off of has like 1,400 plus pages. And I'm literally going to have to like look at the page number in order to drag it in here. First things first, let's shrink that down a little bit. There we go. 409, 5th edition. Let's see. Bombing analysis. Oh, come on. What's going on here? Why can't I use hyperlinks? That's crap. Okay. Oh my god. All right. Drag this right here. Chapter 21, awesome. What is that, moisture considerations? I think that's moisture considerations. 18. So since I no longer have an Adobe Acrobat subscription, I had to get a different PDF reader. For some reason it doesn't like me clicking on hyperlinks within the thing. Okay, here we go. Special conditions, hydrocy, okay. Alright, let's local treatment for edema. Can you copy and paste or type a portion of the sentence for me? Material treatment for general idea. This might be it. Okay, first pause. Water system. Is it? Alright, maybe if I just go to the top of chapter 21, it will search for humectant and not give me crap. Okay. Let's do. So, how do I. No, not that. Nope, there it is. Okay, where is this? So chapter 21, it says in this little thing, our use of co-injection. Okay, embalming analysis determines what embalming chemicals are to be used and what manner these chemicals should be injected. Let's drag this over here. Body moisture plays a significant role in these decisions. Some examples of chemicals and ingestion techniques, the use of which is determined by moisture condition of the body follow. This isn't edema. This has nothing to do with edema. This is them just making a stupid statement in an edema chapter that when you have moisture conditions, here are chemicals that you would use depending on what the moisture conditions are, from edema to dehydration. So that doesn't count. Next one. The dilution rule also applies to use of co-injection humectants. Doesn't have to do with edema. Has to do with the fact that if you try to create, if you take it like a 30 index, like Intrafiant or Power Tone Vivid, and you try to dilute it to make something milder, you don't just dilute the formaldehyde, you dilute everything that's in there. So your humectant becomes less effective because there's less, the amount of humectant is going to be less per overall injection. Like if I do a gallon and a half of 50% fluid, 50% water, I have a hell of a lot more humectant than if I did, say, 25% chemical, 75% water. It's not just diluting the preservative to kind of slow down that preservation reaction. It's also not going to, the humectant's not going to do its job as well. Some humectants can act as a dehydrating chemical as well as a moisturizing chemical. Do not put it in injection for the purpose of dehydrating the body. So what's this one? That treatments that minimize or prevent post-embalming dehydration use a humectant co-injection fluid along with arterial solution. These are fluids that are designed to maintain or add body moisture. When used properly, yes. Okay? And it's important to understand how a humectant works, that it does that. If improperly used, humectants can dehydrate the body. I'll talk about that in a second. So here we are with the vegetable, okay? Several types of treatments can be used to treat large bodies, generalized edema, an average term accompanied by a vegetable humectant to help draw. Okay, damn, there it is. So what is a vegetable humectant? I wonder if they're suggesting adding glycerin. Yeah, it's glycerin. They want you to put in... Wonder if they continue that in the 6th edition. Let's see. Okay, so if it was in chapter 21, it should still be in chapter 21. Let's take a look. Okay, so they removed that language from the 6th edition of the text. So I would feel safe in stating that don't even worry about that. So what are they talking about here? Okay, I think this is the important part. And sorry, folks, when I go away from the studio, the chat disappears. So I use a piece of software called OBS Studio to manage the live stream, and the chat is attached to that. The moment I navigate away from that window and click on something like a PDF reader, the chat disappears. So when you put vegetable glycerin or glycerin products on your skin, like soap has glycerin in it, what it does is it pulls moisture out of your skin and locks it on top. Okay? So it pulls the moisture from deep in your skin, brings it to the top where it moisturizes the surface. Vegetable glycerin is, or vegetable humectant is basically glycerin. And we see glycerin is used in a variety of products. in the embalming room. It's one of the glycol is a synthetic. Okay, is a synthetic, and how humectants work is when they are used in proper dilutions. Okay, this goes back to crystalloids and colloids. We always hear the word colloid, and people sometimes don't have an embalming instructor that explains what these things are. We see in all the textbooks that crystalloids can pass through semi-permeable membranes, they can pass through cellular walls, and they can basically go wherever they want. Formaldehyde, formalin suspended in solution, flows wherever it wants. It's a liquid. Even if there is a solid version that's floating around in there, it would be considered a crystalloid for purposes of transfer between the membranes. Colloids can pass through semi-permeable membranes. They can go from your capillaries into your tissue spaces. But then they come up against the cells. Colloids are too large to go into the cell, so they stick to the outside of the cell. Water that's in the cell gets trapped because as these things stick to the outside of the cell, it's blocking the pores that allow things to go in and out. Water can't come out, but stuff can't go in either. So Professor Finn, where does the dehydration occur? Osmosis. Okay? Osmosis just says, hey, if you got a whole lot of something on one side and a lot less of it on the other, and you got something in between, these things are going to spread, and they're going to try to dilute the one that's on the other side of the membrane. So what ends up happening is all this water rushes out to try to equalize. This is osmotic pressure. It tries to equalize between the inside and the outside because you have all this humectant crap outside. It absorbs this moisture, but the cell shrinks. When this happens on a mass scale, you have dehydration of the cell falls apart. The humectant just sits there. It serves no purpose except for this. So when you use it ideally, one, there is no large transfer of liquid inside and out. The humectants go in, they block the outside, and they actually prevent it from happening. This is why if you look in both books, 5th and 6th edition, it tells you the proper time to put additive humectant, so things like restorative, things like restoratone, is in the last gallon to half gallon of injection. Why? Because then your fluid has penetrated the entire body, it has gone out of the capillaries, it's saturating into your cell spaces, it's entering your cells, you put the humectant in, and it starts going in the same places, sticking to the outside and holding the stuff in. Jay Rhodes told me years ago that when you add, if you have something strong, like intrafiant with dinachrome or intrafiant old-time color, you pour restorative in there and it delays the reaction. He said it has a coating effect. Has a coating effect on the formaldehyde molecule. Whether or not that's true, I have no idea. But what makes sense is when you pour the humectant in there and you inject it immediately, right? It's going in and it's blocking some of those cellular pores, thus preventing the formaldehyde from going in until they get out of the way, which is why you get that delay in the preservation when you tone down something like intrafiant with restorative. So I actually completely missed that in all the years I've been teaching, and I'm the first one to admit it, that a vegetable humectant helps draw moisture out of the tissues and the capillaries. The problem becomes it's not ideal for that, and you shouldn't be using it in that manner. Epsom salts are better. And even if you do use a vegetable glycerin, you still have to do the second part of that step when it comes to removing the edema. So when you do this technique with Epsom salts or any other product, what you need to do is you inject the product, right? You give it time to pull the moisture out. And I assume this is what the theory behind this is. You push the humectant in there, and maybe vegetable glycerins specifically are too large to pass out of the capillaries, which is a very important part here. It absorbs the moisture. It pulls it in from all these different places. You give it 30 minutes to do that. And then what do? You have to flush it. You have to flush all this out of the system. The way you stop the Epsom salts from continually pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling the moisture is you flush them. That way it solved its problem and it doesn't continue to pull and pull and pull and pull and pull. Otherwise, you would like rapidly dehydrate and cause the exact opposite problem. Aloe. I've not heard of aloe reacting with anything, in all honesty. But the issue becomes, what is humectant proper for? And this is why it's omitted in the 6th edition, right? You should not be using humectants for dehydration. Period. If you're going to do that, use Epsom salts or you use co-injection chemicals specifically to pull moisture out. Don't use humectants. I think they repeat that some of using humectant within a edematous case more than once, and I found it to be conflicting to get my hands on the 6th edition as well. Yeah, 6th edition, I don't think... when I use the word vegetable, when I looked for that exact phrase, vegetable humectant, it doesn't appear at all in the 6th edition. Period. Does not appear. And I think that's because it might be considered conflicting, and it's not a good use for that chemical. It's just not. And I couldn't tell you that when I was in mortuary school back in 2006 that Professor Brown or Professor Davis taught it that way. It might have been in the book, but I don't think they ever asked about it. Oh, that's great. Brand new software I just bought just crashed in my ass. I'm glad to know my $40 was very well spent. Doink. Never mind. It's in a PowerPoint from my professor. Which professor do you have? I think repeat the symbol using it within an edematous case more than once, and I found it to be conflicting. In short, can you use humectant within an edematous case as long as it's in the last gallon preserve? You wouldn't want to do it because it's going to hold the water in there. Like that's the whole problem with treating edema. Is if you're going to pull the moisture out, you want to pull with chemical. If you're going to pull the moisture out with chemical, you want to inject the chemical that's going to suck the moisture out, give it 20 to 30 minutes to work, and then you're going to want to flush and inject your preservative. So that way you stop that continually dehydrating effect. Realistically, the only time that works well is with pitting edema. And that's why your book says you might be better served with simply putting the, because pitting edema gravitates, cellular edema does not. So if you have pitting edema, it should respond very well to chemical. Another way you can treat that same condition is with the injection of a higher index. So if you don't have the 30 minutes, you could inject like a 5 or 6% solution so that it really pulls the moisture out of the cell into the capillaries in an attempt to reduce the cellular size. Because remember, you're going to have empty space in your vasculature. So by pulling it out of the tissue spaces, it can fill some of that extra space, thus reducing the overall cellular size. Best way to reduce it is through the injection of chemical, give it time to work, flush it out. When that's done, do whatever other treatments. Prop them up on a gurney, on a mortuary cot. Let it all flow into the lower legs and feet. Do wicking. Matt Smith has achieved some great results with wicking, making small incisions on non-visible areas of the body, putting in cotton and letting the cotton wick that stuff out. Edema is a pain in the butt. Edema really is. Yeah, Professor Davis? Oh. Tell him I said hi. That jerk. I get along great with Professor Davis and Professor Brown. I totally get along better with them now than I ever did when I was a student. He doesn't show up, but Professor Davis cares an awful lot about student success. Like, he's very, very, very happy when people succeed. Feel the table 21-2 in the 6th edition. 21-2, 6th edition, that's Kindle. All right, so 21-2, where are ya? Let's find ya. There's 21-1. Okay, that's figure. Okay, what do we have here? 21-2. That didn't help. Okay, let's zoom in. All right. Solid edema within the body cells. Swollen tissues, difficult preservation, must be excised. Okay, so that's right. So solid or cellular edema, you're not going to fix that with chemical. Pitting edema, even the tissue spaces between the cells, that can be influenced. Strong arterial co-injection, that's good. Anasarca, generalized body, generally doing all body tissues. Solid information, edema of the face. The problem is they try to get way too damn specific, like edema is different wherever it is. Edema is edema. You either have cellular or you have pitting. And if you have it in something like the head, don't treat the entire body with an edema solution, just treat the head. This is why I use restricted cervical. If you have in your book, both books even say that if you generally have edema, you're not getting it in the head, which is why you want to isolate the head with restricted cervical, inject it separate, while you inject something stronger into the body to pull the edema out. So if you look at edema of the face, right? Edema of the facial tissues, edema of the hands, edema of the legs. What a surprise. Tissues are swollen, blah, blah, blah. So what does it say for the face? Strong arterial solutions. Yep, just like pitting edema. Hypodermic and surface embalming, plastic garments, gravitation, puncture, and drain. Do you see anything that is similar to all other forms of edema? If I just got rid of any of these things, you can use the same treatments on all of them. And you're expected to. If you have edema of the legs, you could look at something like edema of the face, strong arterial solutions, hypodermic and surface embalming, plastic garments, gravitation, puncture and drain. Gravitation, pop them on is propping them up on the cot. But if it's in the legs, you really don't have to care about gravitating it down. It's already where it needs to be. So with the legs, what did it say? Sectional injection. Sectional injection from the axillary artery. That's cute. I don't know why the hell you would do that, but we're just going to say that chapter editor really likes injecting from an armpit. Surface pass with cavity fluid to ensure preservation, bleach any discolorations. I'm not going to say that's contradictory. I just think that's impractical, because if you're going to do edema of the legs, okay, so let me try to think this through. I'm injecting from the armpits. I'm injecting in this way. It's going to hit. It's going to fill all the places it shouldn't in the head because I'm injecting in the armpits, and then it's going to go down. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me. That might be something I make a note of and send to the editor and say, okay, what's the purpose of injecting the armpits to fix the legs? just to try to see what the logic is behind that. Oh, you know why? Iliac. Injection from the iliac. Not axillary, the iliac. So they probably put the wrong artery there, in all honesty. Because it makes no sense to do it in the armpit. But if you do it from the iliac, that makes sense. And that makes perfect sense because if you have fat legs, right? If you have a lot of fat in the legs in an obese case, you're not supposed to use the femoral, you're supposed to use the iliac. It's just the wrong artery. Period. Surface packs with cavity fluid. You're trying to suck the fluid out through the top. Elevate to gravitate edema into the... Why would you edema it into the arms? You'd want to elevate it and get it into the abdomen. Okay, we're just going to say that the edema of the leg section there is broken. Because that doesn't make sense at all. If you scratch his back, he'll scratch yours. He's very helpful and graceful towards me when I was... Dude, I almost punched him. I almost slugged him when I was in school. He pissed me off so bad during embalming lab. Oh my God, he upset me so bad in embalming lab. I was so tired from working like a 2-week stretch. 20-2 only... Yeah, I think it's only in the 6th edition. Yeah, I have concerns about that one with the legs. Pulmonary edema. Edema in the lungs. Sectional injection of legs from... Okay. I can tell you exactly what the morons did. They put the description for edema of the legs next to pulmonary edema. Because that makes sense. If I have crap in the lungs and I inject here, that's going to go into the lungs. Like, that's absolutely going to... So they have them in the wrong place. Flip them up, flip pulmonary edema, the description or the treatment, one up, and then move the edema of the legs down. That's what they did. Hydrothorax, you just suck it out. Ascites, you suck it out. Hydropericardium, suck it out. Yeah. So that's why it doesn't make sense. That's why it doesn't make sense, folks. Just because they have the wrong one in the wrong cell. Oh, you found it? Okay. Is it screwed up in the 5th edition as well? Out of curiosity, do they have the axillary one? They probably don't, because they hand-typed this. They probably tried to copy and paste, and they copy and pasted in the wrong cell. Oops. Big Kenny, how the hell are you doing, man? How's Massachusetts? You freezing your bits off up there yet? Tell Professor Shea I said hi. All right. What I am going to do, just real quick, drag this over here. Boom. And that's how you fix a discrepancy in the textbook. You send it off to the publisher. It's also very screwed up in the 5th edition, so they copy and pasted it. Oopsies. Well, now it's fixed no matter what, because I just sent it to the chair of the curriculum committee of the American Board, the executive director of the American Board, asking for a publisher contact. So the people who guide the curriculum know, and we'll get that to the publisher to get that fixed. And when did it happen? On Professor Finn's live stream. Forever immortalized, right? Aaron writes, and we pay how much for these books? $100. You get $100. And if you buy the next edition, the 7th edition, you're going to get your very own scratch and sniff stickers for Putrescine, Cadaverine, and Scately. So look forward to that. Great fun at parties, handed out to kids at Halloween, and great for like quinceañeras and sweet 16s. God, could you imagine doing that? Handing out like decomp smelling stickers to kids at Halloween. If any of you do that, I get at least 20% of the cut for coming up with the idea. All right, let's kill that. All right, folks. Bam, 1 minute to go. It'll be 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Glad y'all could stop by. I'll be doing these regularly again, so I'll start posting. I think I'm going to do them first Fridays. I think I'm going to do first Fridays of every month going forward, so that these are on the calendar ready to go, and I just get in the habit of doing them. Right now I got like a bare bones setup. Like I just have the computer set up. My mixing board got fried, end up throwing it away. All my crap is still in Miami. It should be here in the next couple of weeks. Kenny writes, 4 weeks to go and I am done with school. It's 42 degrees. Dude, it was in the 30s here in Texas. Because I'm in like northeastern Texas. And oh my God, dude. I haven't felt Massachusetts weather in probably 20-something years. Like 30-something years. I'll tell you what, dude. I got cold. I legit got cold. And I never get cold. So, man, it's gotten bad for me. Dollar says, now I feel like they need to credit us the newest edition of finding that error, Professor Finn et al. Right? Yeah, I don't envision that happening. I'm just surprised. Like, I know I shouldn't even be surprised because having edited textbooks, I know how tedious it is. And the folks that did this, I mean, they started basically from scratch and recreated everything. It certainly is a hell of a lot more consistent than the 5th edition. Like, I find very little fault in the 6th edition with consistency. And that's not a consistency issue, right? There's nothing in there that contradicts itself. It's a typographical issue. Once you fix it, the information makes perfect sense. Like when you put it where it's supposed to go. Thank you for this. I benefited greatly from it. You're welcome. Angela, thanks for stopping by. Next time, bring a friend. Let's get more people. I might have a different hat. Can you steal your dogs? They're so cute. Oh, did you see them? They're hiding back there. They're all over Facebook. I post pictures of like the Chihuahua all the time. Chihuahua got real sick. Like I thought last week I'd have to put the Chihuahua down. I was pretty messed up, but he seems to be taking the antibiotics well. He's an old dude. Like he's got to be 13, 14 years old. So every moment I get with the little guy, it's just a good time. But yeah, I got real scared last week. So the 6th edition is essentially less rambling? Yes. I'm not saying there isn't some rambling sections. Like there's some sections where legit they just copy and pasted crap to copy and paste crap. And so that we're clear, because I wasn't involved in the chapter editing. Okay, I want to be very clear. I'm not a chapter editor of the book. My name doesn't appear in there. One of the things that they went into this edition is they want to make sure that there is repetition throughout the chapters. So that if you read it here, you read it there, you read it again, so that it sticks in. And also when they cut and paste certain objects, it is going to be identical, and that's exactly what you want. Now, probably the next major edit, because Professor G. Mascarello has retired, I don't know if she'll continue. There's no discussion right now of editing this into a 7th edition, okay, just to be clear. I don't know if she would remain on as the main editor if that comes up when that comes up, because it inevitably will come up. But in that edition, that is when they're likely going to look at some of these, and with different chapter editors, because that's how most of these large textbooks get published. You have a main editor that looks over the consistency of the entire thing, kind of like the head chef, and you have specialty chefs and sous chefs and stuff like that within a restaurant, right? Well, you have individuals working on certain chapters. So Professor Brown worked on a chapter. I think Dr. Lease from PIMS worked on one of the chapters. Everyone was working on this stuff. So in the 5th edition, you really see that some of these chapters do not match other chapters. Like, it's a completely different tone. Most of the chapters in this book are consistent with each other. Yes, they're written by different people, but most certainly it flows a hell of a lot better than it did in the 5th. And when the next edit of this book comes out, I'm sure it's going to be something similar, that they may reduce some of the copy and paste stuff, or at least try to think of a better way to do it. I don't want to be too critical of these folks, because I know them, I love them, they're great people. They worked their asses off to get this book done. Like, my God, they worked hard, and I'm really proud of all the work they did, and the textbook is outstanding. So don't think for a second that I'm being critical that the book sucks and, they suck and everyone sucks. No, it's the rewrite that they did. This was great work. It was outstanding. Do you mind me adding you on Facebook? No, not at all. I don't care. I take anyone and everyone on Facebook. It's only when people start getting like, hey, how are you? I start getting those DMs. Hey, I'm great. How are you? Oh, I'm lonely. I'm sure. Block. Oh my God, I love it. I get like 3 or 4 of those a week these days. So yeah, social media's for everyone, kids. Feel free to add on Facebook. I always post job notices, stuff like that, on my LinkedIn, on Facebook. So y'all have some fun with it. And I will look forward to seeing all of you the next time. No one's got any other burning questions, folks? Give it about 30 seconds. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out and spending some time with me, because, dude, it feels good to be literally, to use a Texas phrase, back in the saddle doing this. Like, I'm really happy that these 2 hours like flew by. Film program at Cape Cod, is that you, Professor Shea? During the curriculum review, we also send Shannon a few critiques for minor edits while we review. Good, yeah. And folks, that's a very important thing right there. Is the American Board of Funeral Service Education has a curriculum committee. I just talked about it a little bit. These are the folks that kind of look at all the different outlines for all the subjects that are taught in schools. And every summer, there is a workshop where a bunch of people get together, subject matter experts who put in resumes and ask to be in this workshop, and they go over some of the subjects. So in any one given year, we're looking at like anywhere between 3 and 5 subjects. And they find stuff like this during that process, and they submit corrections as well. So don't think like, oh, there's an error in the book, no one ever touches it. No, it is touched a lot, but it is imperative that if you find stuff like this, don't think that, oh, well, they know about it. No. I mean, I've been teaching for 15 years. I had the 4th and the 5th edition of the embalming book. And I can tell you that I do not remember ever seeing the whole vegetable glycerin statement ever made. And maybe it was just because someone told me, oh yeah, that's irrelevant, and crossed it out, because I sure as hell don't have it in my 5th edition video PowerPoints. Like, I know I don't. And I would swear on a stack of Bibles that language isn't in there, and yet there it is. And I am completely at a loss at how I have missed that for nearly 2 decades. That's definitely Shay. Yeah, that's definitely my boy. So all you up in Massachusetts, man, that's where the American Board's gonna have its April meeting up there in Boston. Finn's gonna be back in his hometown. I'm gonna try to get up there. I'm gonna take vacation like earlier in that week. Try to get up there, and I'm gonna go back and visit all my old places. I grew up in Methuen. I'm gonna go visit Methuen, Lawrence. Try to drive through Newburyport, just to check out all the places that I haven't seen in 30 something years. It's not the same when you drop on the VR goggles. So those of you who have VR, there is a wonderful program called Wander, and it drops you into a first person perspective in Google Maps. So you can actually like look around and whatnot and use Google Maps as kind of a virtual world. And I did that. I dropped myself into Google Maps, and I was just walking around my old neighborhood to see what houses are still there, what do they look like, places I went to school, places I used to shop. Dude, it's crazy. It was a major nostalgia hit. I'd come to Cape Cod. I mean, I'd come to Four Seas. I would come to Four Seas. I haven't been to the Cape in forever, and I'll probably want to visit the Cape when I go up there. I have some very fond memories of the Cape. I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna spend, well, depending on how cold it is, I'll probably do a drive through of Plum Island. That's where I used to go with my family to go to the beach, get periwinkles and other little itty bitty sea creatures to cook and eat. Glad I could catch the end of the stream. You're the best, Finn. Loving the cowboy. I love the cowboy hat too. Like, I love this hat. This hat is so cool. Thanks for stopping by. I mean, y'all want to hang out and chat? I'll continue to chat for another 30 or 40 minutes. I got no beef with that. But I know some of y'all got families and whatnot. So any of you latecomers, you are welcome to hang out and chat if you got something to talk about. Otherwise, y'all be blessed, man. We'll see you next month. You're in Bridgewater? Oh, dude, I'm still gonna go to the Cape. Like, I want to see the Cape with adult eyes. So I was born in 75. I left in 89. And I went back once, I think in 1990, 1991 maybe. That was it. I haven't been back to Massachusetts since then. That means everything that I have in my memory was from a kid's perspective. So now I want to go back as an adult and look at all of those areas and see, is it like I remember? My grammar school has been shuttered for years, but the building is still there. I want to drive by and see it. I want to go to my old parish where I was in boy choir. I want to, I want to see all those places again. I think the kindergarten, the nunnery that was my kindergarten, I think it's like a health clinic or something now. It's just crazy. It's crazy how the diocese lost all that property. They sold it all off to cover their expenses for priests being naughty. All right, folks. See you in nothing. Y'all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next live stream.